Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland
There
on
he
the Majority
is.
Report. Want to welcome back to the program the now Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani. Mr. Mayor-elect, thanks for joining us.
Very welcome. They tried very hard, the internet gods, to keep us off. They couldn't.
We have successfully, and that is, I know.
Let the people know we're calling in live.
Yes. Yes.
We should say that you're in the middle of your transition team. I know you guys are raising money for that because apparently there's no city money for that, and it's showing in the context of the internet. And so hopefully we can get folks to come and contribute to that effort. But we don't have you for very much, so I want to jump right into it. There's obviously a little bit of controversy since you've been over the past week or so. You went to go visit Donald Trump. He's the president of the United States. And there's also been, talk about you were asked about supporting Hakeem Jeffries this weekend. I'm really curious as to it seems to me you have two constituencies. You have the citizens of New York City who elected you on 4 major material platforms. And then you also have movement people and who are looking for you to bring a politics that's associated with the DSA and progressive left of the Democratic Party. And, there's people who are in both parts of that Venn diagram. I think we are probably. How do you serve both those things? Or do you feel that there have to be concessions made on one side or another or both? I mean, how do you, what trumps, forgive the pun?
I think what gives me hope, frankly, is that I don't actually see these as two distinct constituencies innately of themselves. I think at the heart of both New Yorkers at large and of the movement that I'm so proud to be a part of is a concern for the material. What does any decision actually mean for working people's ability to live a dignified life? And that, to me, has to be the framework through which I approach any decision or conversation. And there's been a lot of questions I've been asked of who won in the conversation you had with President Trump, and it is all geared towards a sense that it has to be one politician or the other politician. And what I've said is, in fact, that it was New Yorkers who won because it's New Yorkers that we actually spoke about. And I actually told the president directly that we launched our campaign on October 23rd of last year, but there were far more people who actually heard about us after the president won election, where we went and interviewed New Yorkers in the hearts of the neighborhoods that swung towards in New York City, right? Fordham Road in the Bronx, Hillside Avenue in Queens. And I spoke to the president how it was cost of living that brought those New Yorkers to his campaign and cheaper groceries, and how we sought to build a campaign looking to answer the question of how do we bring those voters back into a Democratic primary and back into the politics of our city. And we did so by listening to their concerns and looking to build a platform that spoke directly to them as opposed to have to be translated to them. And even in the conversation around, the question of primary challenges, and much of this I would say is typically private within DSA, but everything I've said has been reported publicly, so I might as well just speak about it to you directly. I went to the endorsement forum that was considering whether or not to endorse C in that primary challenge, and what I said there is that this is not a question of the ballot box of who you would rather vote for. This is a question of how you want to spend the next year. Do you want to spend the next year fulfilling the agenda at the heart of this movement, or do you want to spend it defending the caricatures of that movement? And the decision that I made, and the one that I shared with other members that night as they were considering how to participate in that democratic process, is to maximize every chance we have to fulfill the promises we made door after door, call after call, with many New Yorkers who had otherwise lost faith in politics years ago, so that we can tell them that success isn't just measured in the election we've already had, but also in our fulfillment of the agenda at the heart of that election.
Well,
and
yes.
I think that this.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
Well, I don't know. And I was just going to say that I don't ever presume that everyone will come to the same conclusion as me. I don't think that dissent or critique is something that I'm above in sharing these decisions, but they do come from this as my framework, and I think it's honestly helpful to be able to share it with people.
No, I appreciate that, and I'm just eager to ask you these things because we have you for such a limited time. Really, is one is it your kind of belief basically that delivering on your agenda in terms of the macro constituency that Sam was just speaking about is the best way to kind of show how the movement can expand and have more politicians like yourself across the country run in that way? And I would imagine that was motivating you and what you said to DSA. And two, does that mean that you're ruling out supporting primary challenges broadly throughout the city?
No, that I've made no sweeping decision on something at like a larger level as that. And to your first question, I think often about what Bernie said at our rally, which was that what our opponents in the campaign feared the most was the power of example. And that example is not of just winning the election. That's the example of delivering a rent freeze, of fast and free buses, of universal childcare. Because those are things you can hold on to. Those are things that you can actually feel and see in your life. And so much of politics is this game of translation where a politician says something and then you have to jump through 10 hoops to understand how it relates to you, or if you're eligible, or if you hit the threshold. And these are not things that require that kind of a translation. These are things that are direct to our lives. And I think that it's, I remember when I was running for assembly, a friend of mine, Kara McCurdy, who's an incredible photographer who works on our campaign, I gave her the palm card that we had just designed with Anish, who actually created the logo for this mayoral campaign. And I thought it was the best palm card we'd ever made. And she looked at it and she said, "What do these words mean?" And we were just using a language that speaks only to a very specific set of people. And I think it just comes back to that you need to speak directly to people, you need to speak about policies that are also direct to their lives, and it all needs to be without translation. And so to me, once we succeed in the fulfillment of any part of this agenda, it becomes an example of why New Yorkers made the right decision to believe that politics could be more than this, as opposed to that they were wrong to have hope again.
I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but I am quite convinced that your success in achieving these, the four main planks that of affordability that you ran on, I think are really fundamental to the future of the movement. And so, that's why my interest in where you feel like you have to make those decisions that are focused on delivering that material thing. About 6 months after you won the primary, we were talking that you have a limited window of peak leverage, not just because you're coming off of the win, but also because Albany is tied up in the governor's race, and the present governor has a candidate running to her left in some fashion, and that it might provide you with more leverage. I'm curious, and it ties into this fact that it's nuts to me that there isn't transition funds, that because. It's nuts to me too, brother. I would imagine. I mean, this isn't, with all due respect to my hometown, this isn't, you're not becoming mayor of Worcester, Massachusetts. This is a big city. And, but your need for transition to be running on day one, because what do you see as like your window of peak leverage to get what you need for the city?
I think New Yorkers are rightfully an impatient people, and I think what New Yorkers need to see is an urgency in how our administration is treating this work, and it actually all comes back to the transition. We want this transition to be a time where we can do the work of preparation, so that January 1st is not the day where I'm asking myself, I wonder who's going to be my first deputy mayor, right. Or I wonder who's going to be running my OMB, or I wish I had staff so that we could have done the vetting of the 70,000 applicants from our portal. And it means you have to ask people to invest in you in advance of your opportunity so that you can actually seize that opportunity when you're presented with it. And to me, I think that the first year is a critical time in how we start to both share our plans for the implementation of these policies, but also start to deliver for New Yorkers, because we often talk about President Trump in the context of disagreements that we have around policies or personnel. But one thing that I've often reflected on is that it seems as if the speed that Washington moves at right now is thought of as if it's exclusive to this specific presidency or this party or this ideology, when in fact it could be a marker for any kind of politics. And that's what New Yorkers also need to see. It's not, I'm not going to announce, on day one that we're going to establish a study or something. It's that we actually have to be doing the work of delivering and doing it in a way that New Yorkers can feel it in their lives, as opposed to something that they have to understand at an intellectual level. I can feel Amelia hovering over me, letting me know that I have to run away.
Okay. Really last question on this. Were you surprised when Trump joined you in calling on Con Edison to cut rates? Because for people that don't know, Con Ed's the electric gas utility monopoly in New York State. Do you feel that there are avenues to work with him on lowering Con Ed prices? Because my bill, everyone's bill in this office, has been insane recently.
I am interested in exploring that further with the president. And when we were talking about what the cost of living crisis means for New Yorkers, when we got to the question of utilities, we were speaking about the fact that they only ever go up. They only ever increase on an annual basis. And, I have been a participant in a rate case before where I've advocated against an increase and spoken about the fact that at that time, 1 in 4 of my constituent cases in Astoria had to do with Con Ed. 1 in 4. And that is before they raised gas and electric by more than $60 a month. So I have hope. That's something that I want to explore. And I will always look to explore anything, frankly, that can address the cost of living crisis, and utilities are a big part of it.
All right,
Thank you guys so much.
quick one.
Okay.
I got a 12-year-old son. Where are you on snow days? He wants me to ask.
Look, I have not even talked to the policy team, but I'll just tell you, I love them.
Where
I may have to clean this up later. We'll find out soon.
Where can people contribute to the transition if they want to?
Transition2025.com, and you can give whatever you're able to, just so long as you are a permanent resident of the United States of America.
Great.
Thank
you so much. Good luck.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.